You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on BQN and the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kelvin, and with me today, it's the girls. It's Amy and Kristin. Hello, hello. Amy, how are you?
Oh, my goodness. Well, it's been a week after my 1 year of pretend retirement. I went back to work and I'm exhausted. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah, it's been a full week, but absolutely wonderful to get back to a routine and see my students. I really did miss those students. So I'm very glad to be back.
And get paid.
Yes.
Oh, it must be terrible. It must be like like when returning to work, mums after maternity get baby brain and,
Yes.
go out of the habit. But yeah, oh, well, welcome back to the world of work and welcome, I'm sure those students are so enriched and grateful for having Councillor Amy in their lives.
Well, we'll see.
It's early days.
Yeah.
And Kristin, how are things over in Canada?
Things are good. It was a busy birthday weekend for me. So it was one of my dear friends of 25 years. It was her birthday. It was my mother-in-law's birthday, and our little baby kitten Jinx turned 1. So it was a lot of celebration. I am tired, but my heart is full.
Oh, that coffee cup is very full as well. Be careful sloshing that around. She's got like a pint of coffee.
This is such a tiny mug.
It's huge.
It's only...
Yes, but what's the diameter? Let's be real.
It's girthy.
You know what? When we do the view screen, I will show this mug and we will take a poll. Does this actually look like a big cup of coffee? Because in my estimation, it's not. I will probably have about 4 of these today. So
this is a normal size little coffee cup.
And as Europeans, we do like our coffees quite small, but very, very powerful. So a huge, voluminous, watery coffee, not really for us.
Well, this isn't watery, though. This is like a strong espresso blend.
She's going to have some opinions today, then.
Yes.
Well, and it's funny. We're talking about that when this is the episode we're talking about addictions. And here I am with my giant cup of Crutch, a.k.a. coffee.
Calvin, how are you this week?
I'm really well. Do you know what? It's been an interesting week here in Manchester. I shouldn't laugh about this. It's quite serious. But there was basically a young criminal who jumped across all the fences in the back gardens of all the houses on my street. And he was running away from the chasing police. Oh. And Amy, you've been here, there's 4 houses in a row.
Yeah.
And we're all a really close-knit neighbours, and we've all got different video cam footage in the back garden of him jump. So I assembled it all together into like a montage of him running away. Made a little video of it. But joking aside, it was quite scary. He was armed. He had a massive knife on him, and when he got to the final house in the street, he was trapped. And as he tried to scale the fence, the police were there. And they pepper sprayed him just to kind of disable him a bit so they could arrest him and drag him off. Yeah, he had lots of drugs on him. And
oh, my goodness.
So, yeah, all very shady goings on in the underworld of Manchester. But
wow, when you said he was armed, I was like, oh, my gosh. And then you just say, oh, it's just a knife. I'm like,
yeah, we don't do guns over here.
I'm like, was it an automatic? What is it? What was he carrying? An AK-47?
No, he wasn't armed. The police wasn't armed. I mean, we shot him with pepper.
Oh, man, how would that be to not have that go first thing through my head? That's just bizarro.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I mean, knives cost a lot of damage as well. So knife crime is
Absolutely.
terrible over here. So I'm not being holier than that. But I mean, joking aside, the nosy neighbor aspect of all these gay men, as soon as the police turn up, going into their back gardens, going, "Ooh, what's going on?" was really camp and really funny.
Have you ever seen that meme and there's something there or a little, it's like a little TikTok video and it's just hilarious where there's some sort of commotion going across and this guy just films himself like vacuuming in one room looking and then all of a sudden it cuts to him vacuuming in a closer room and then next thing you know he's just out vacuuming on his front lawn just staring.
I've not
so
seen this
mean.
meme, but I imagine that's James.
Oh, well, you know, I every time I hear of these people who are just so lost, I was like, you just need some Star Trek. You need to watch some Star Trek and let it enrich your life and pick up on its moral code.
Yes.
Yeah, they're missing something.
So we'll put the drugs aside for one moment because we may be talking drugs a little later in the episode. Before we get to that,
great joy and gratitude.
I always expect that to go on a bit longer. Kristin, as you take a massive gulp of coffee, what has brought you great joy and gratitude this week, love?
Oh, well, so much great joy and gratitude outside of truck stuff. Just, I hadn't been feeling well for a while, and so I had to take some time off of work. And so returning to work this last week was, and just having everybody just come up and say how happy they were I've returned, et cetera, just made me feel really loved and appreciated. But my Star Trek related great joy and gratitude is so random, where Disney Plus has put up one of my favorite coming of age teen movies from when I was young. It was released in '94. It's called Camp Nowhere. And it stars Christopher Lloyd, and he gets hired by these kids to essentially steal their parents' money to take road summer camp. And so I was like, of course, we all love Christopher Lloyd. He is epic. He is timeless. But little did I know there was literal Trek royalty in this movie.
Ooh,
so
who?
Kate Mulgrew shows up as an overbearing theater mother who is just hilarious. And then uncredited, but at the very end as an aloof theater father was Jonathan Frakes himself.
Wow.
What?
In a little pork pie hat and a linen suit. And I was screaming because I saw it 30 years ago. I don't remember. Yeah. And so just reliving that lately with all the old movies being put up for streaming, all of the Trek faces just bring me so much joy to see them in other roles and other ways that they've sort of made their career. And then I'm thinking 94. So where was this in terms of Voyager? So she was just getting ready to start her run as Janeway.
Wow.
I love that.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to watch a ridiculously hilarious movie and see some familiar faces, Camp Nowhere is currently streaming on Disney Plus.
Fabulous. And what about yourself, Amy?
Well, going along with Kate Mulgrew, she at STLV was promoting, she was on Flowers in the Attic Origin Stories. If you remember that trashy, terrible book that I devoured as a teenager. Oh man. And so I started watching it last night. There's like 4 parts, like little mini series type of thing. So I saw the first part last night. And it was very interesting to see her play this character that is so like different than Janeway. Like it's the backstabbing sort of, you know, she's like the main house person, like taking care of the housemaid, yeah. But like, you know, the number 1 housemaid. Anyways, it's very interesting. But my real great joy and gratitude was speaking with John Eves at STLV, and he is the designer of the Enterprise E graphic designer, and he has agreed to join us on the view screen
Ooh,
Hello.
Amy's going signing the big names. Well done, you.
So very excited. Hope y'all will tune into the view screen because we are getting some good gets this season. So
He's
I
not on
can't
the
wait.
1 week I'm away, is he?
no.
Okay.
We put him, yes.
I'm going to have major FOMO that week that I'm away. I'm like, oh, what am I missing?
We're going to have fun. We're going to have to do the news ourselves. Yeah, we're going to have to work for the week. We're going to have
Oh
to
my
research
goodness.
everything. Oh, well, that's amazing. And as we kind of get closer to wrapping up all good things for the season, next week is our penultimate of the run. So we've only got 2 more episodes after this before we come back for the view screen for 10 weeks. We've been doing some final prep and bookings and getting everything sorted. And that in itself is a great joy and gratitude for the week, all this preparation work. We've got some new things behind the scenes, some new visuals coming, and plenty of new guests and some recurring guests as well. So can't wait for that. But my actual great joy and gratitude from the merch world is there was a new soundtrack for Picard season 3. So part 2 was released this week, and I've been listening to it. It's got quite a dark tone, if I can say that. It's a lot of the Vadic and the Borg music. So I was walking to work, listening to it, thinking, my God, thank God we're in the height of summer. If I was listening to this walking home from work in the dark, I'd be terrified. All the First Contact Borg music. Just imagine that in your mind. You're not a million miles off. And yeah, it's good. It's good. And I can't believe there was that much material they didn't get onto the first album. So it's good stuff.
That's what I was thinking when I saw part 2. I was like, there's enough for 2 parts.
Yeah.
But I guess we don't think about so much of the ambient music happening when we're watching. So,
yeah.
And it's great that they come out with these to give credit to the people who their faces aren't on the screen, but the show would not be the same without their work.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, Amy, would you like to tell the listeners what we are covering this week?
Well, sure. We are covering our addiction series, part 3. I really thought there was more.
Me too.
Okay. Each time it's very important, and that's why we remember it. So today, we are going to cover DS9's The Wire. And you guys, I would have never even thought to put this in the addiction series, but when I saw that, I'm like, oh, absolutely. So this is the one where Garak starts, having these pains, and he's with Bashir having their lunch, and Bashir's like, come on, let's go to infirmary, and he refuses. And come to find out, he has this implant that's in his head. They can't remove it. And this implant is responsible for giving him endorphins. And he has chosen by himself to have it go continuously, which then leads to this addiction. It eventually obviously breaks down. And then we've got him going through withdrawals. And I don't know if the withdrawals make his stories seem even more outlandish or if it's really the truth. And that's always the same with Garak.
Absolutely. Kristin, I'm sure you've got some initial thoughts to this episode before we get into the kind of topic related. You've been waiting for this one in the episode list coming up, haven't you?
I have. Anything Garak is my favorite to look at. And as somebody who has worked with people with addictions for so many years in my career, that I thought that this was actually a very realistic portrayal of somebody who is coming to a point where they need to make some major decisions in their lives and decide to move forward and try and get clean. And I just some of the ways that Andrew Robinson portrayed the struggle between getting over that withdrawal and blaming everybody around them for his problems and all that. It's just it really hit home in a few areas that, you know, as the discussion progresses, I'll talk about. But I thought that it was just such a powerful and well done episode. And AJ is just, you know, chef's kiss. He's a phenomenal actor, just a phenomenal actor.
Yeah, no argument here from the listeners, I'm sure. I think this episode is great because it really does give you the point of view of the addict and the carer, in this case, Bashir, which is sometimes an overlooked kind of subject of the people who were involved in the wider addiction. So we're going to focus on that. But before we dive into Garak and Bashir, I think it's useful just to explore Garak's situation on Deep Space Nine a little more, looking at the exile. So this is the very first time in Deep Space Nine, and indeed in Star Trek, that we hear the reference to the Obsidian Order. And it's really hard to kind of take yourself back now we know so much about the Order. But Amy, did you have any thoughts on kind of hearing about the Obsidian Order? What did it remind you of, or what did it conjure?
So before, like, first run, we had previously heard of the Tal Shiar. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. And that's the Romulan, right?
Mhm.
And so, but the Klingons, they don't have a.
They have, I want to say the Order of the Bat'leth, but that's wrong. That's just a ceremony we have. But there is something like the Brotherhood of the Sword, or there's something. It's not covert operations, I don't believe. It's some kind of honor guard.
Okay.
But there's a Klingon-y version, and obviously we have Section 31 for Federation as well.
Right, but we hadn't heard of Section 31
No.
in chronological.
No, we only had the Tal Shiar.
Right. Okay. So this was still a relatively new idea, I think, especially for Star Trek, when, you know, Starfleet is so on the up and up, you know, and it's like, oh, there's these, you know, subverts operations going on. And then to have Garak be part of that. And I was just trying to figure out what was going on. But man, that Obsidian Order sounded terrifying. And Garak puts himself at sort of secondhand man of it. And so you're just wondering, well, how large is this organization? Because he was sort of describing this guy and all of his friends, and he sort of worked his way up. And I'm like, okay, I wanted to know the size, like how prevalent is it? And that's what I was thinking when I first heard of this and him describing it.
Yeah. And we'd only really had the Cardassian military up to this point. Cardassians were, in a way, quite one note. So this kind of secret and fearful organization was an extra dimension. Kristin, what do you think about the Obsidian Order?
I always really enjoy when we start to learn about, you know, these cohort groups working within these different species. And of course, it would be the Romulans and the Cardassians who are introduced first, just I think because of the nature of their highly militaristic societies. But they also try to save face a lot of times and be like, oh, but we're willing to try and work things out and be civil and stuff. Are you? And obviously not, because they've got these little groups going around gathering information of their enemies to kind of help them be very strategic in how they operate throughout the universe. I also loved the name using Obsidian Order. Obsidian has throughout history, this actual stone itself, been used as one of the major materials to make knives and arrowheads and all of that. So prehistoric people used obsidian because it was so strong. They would sharpen it, and that would be their weapon and how they would defeat their enemies. So I just think it's such a clever name.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
it's so it's a very apropos that they use that. And really, I think that how they operate the obsidian order, where I think aren't the Tal Shiar even more so segregated? Like once they join, they don't really work with the rest of like your lay person, for example. But with the Cardassians, it seems like they almost carry on their daily lives, even though there's part of this order. So I think that is even more difficult to do because you're constantly needing to switch back and forth between your different personas and your different roles. And so I think we have to even give the people who are part of this credit for being able to keep their cover for as well as they do.
Yeah, live a duplicitous life completely.
Right? That can't be easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Garak is named in this episode as having a senior role within the Obsidian Order as an agent, albeit still shrouded in mystery. Was he not? Obviously, we later learn he definitely was. And his situation of his exile is he's gone from top dog down to just a tailor in an area where nobody likes him and he's an outcast. So thinking about the kind of the situation of why Garak was leading into this addiction, that backstory of the Order was so important for this episode to show what Garak was before being a tailor. We also are introduced to Aenar Tain in this episode, albeit we don't find out here that Tain is Garak's father. We have to wait a couple more years for that. But even in the rewatch and the prep and the talking of the addiction, it's hard not to think of that father-son relationship or that weird relationship Garak must have with his father here. So it's got me thinking, how layered do we think this is on his exile, his situation, knowing that it's in effect his father who's exiled him? What do you think? What are your thoughts, Kristin?
I mean, to have a parent turn their back on their child is probably one of the most difficult things for a lot of offspring to accept for whatever reason. I mean, in this case, it was duty to the Cardassian world. That is why he turned his back on his son, and that's hard. I've seen a lot of times tough love, but tough love versus pure exile is a big difference. And for Garak to have to come to terms with that and be so isolated from everything he's known and loved, the fact that he started to rely on a substance or become addicted is not surprising at all.
Yeah.
And there was a study done where with soldiers who were being sent over to Vietnam back in the 60s, and the prevalent use of substances, hard substances over there, was off the charts, because the soldiers were taken from a place they loved. They were essentially sent, many against their will, to a new area where they had no connection, no family, no familiarity, nothing. So the relying on these the drugs was a way for them to cope, and it was their coping mechanism. And then when the war wrapped up and they returned home, so many of them were able to leave the substances behind cold turkey and just move on, because they were back in their home. They had that connection again. They had their family again. So their ability to return to essentially what is their baseline was really, really simple, and they were able to leave the substance uses behind. So I think that when I was watching this episode, that story came straight into my head, because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? Garak had everything that he knew as his normality ripped away from him. The human body can't, or I guess in this case, the Cardassian body can't handle that type of trauma. So how do we deal? We engage in different substances that are going to change our moods.
Yeah.
So follow what you're saying. And if Garak went back to Cardassia, do you think he'd be able to quit? I don't know, because I feel, and maybe I have the reason why he got exiled wrong, but wasn't he exiled because that last mission or whatever was children and innocence? And he had, all of a sudden, his moral compass was like, this is wrong. So he got exiled because his moral compass was correct. So I don't think going back to Cardassia would sort of solve the problem, but like, how terrible is that it's like you feel what is right in a world where everything is telling you what's wrong. He is still feeling the guilt of, I shouldn't have had compassion. This is the Cardassia way. Like, that's what he is seeing as right, but his moral inside compass is telling him different. And for me, I'm like, man, that's a reason to use drugs. I mean, the entire world that he knew is saying that is incorrect.
Yeah. And I think when we talk about moral compass, it's always so interesting when you say, whose moral compass are we talking about? You know, so for Cardassia, the moral compass would have been to follow your orders and to follow what is best for Cardassia. So in that case, it would have been following through with his orders. But I think it's interesting that we see that differentiation between what we see as right and what they saw as right. And I agree. I don't know if returning to Cardassia would have fixed everything, but I think what would have is we see him being able to get better as connection and as community starts being built around Garak on DS9, sort of after this episode, where he doesn't return to the substances. He comes to start building relationships. And then when Ducat's daughter, sorry, it's early, her name,
Zial.
You know, that type of community as well, because she too is seen as an outcast. And so I think the point I was trying to make about it was just the opposite of addiction is not abstinence, but it's connection. Right. So finding what you need to feel loved and to feel supported will help you stay away from things that are very difficult. So when I see homeless people on the side of the road, so literally with needles hanging out of their arms, I don't think to myself, they need to get clean. I think to myself, they need to be loved and accepted and healed.
Connected.
And connected. So that's sort of what I was thinking, was just, you know, it wasn't that Garak necessarily needed to go home, because it didn't seem like that was a place where he naturally fit anymore because his moral compass was so different. But I think it was that he just needed to be accepted and appreciated for who he was, and have his past be the past and accept him for who he is moving forward. So
I know. Kelvin, can I jump to Bashir? Because I want to, we're going to be all over the place. But I want to connect that with what you're saying, like, because Garak, through this episode, keeps lashing out at Bashir, the one person who he does have that connection with. Thankfully, Bashir is smarter, a medical doctor, and understands addiction. And, you know, so when Garak's like, well, you think I care about these lunches with you? You're crazy. I don't care about them. And I was like, ouch, that's gotta hurt. But if you actually break it down, no, he does care. Otherwise, he wouldn't come to lunch. You can't tell me, oh, I'm bored, so that's why I'm gonna. No, if you don't enjoy that person's company on any level, then you are not going to do it. Doesn't matter how bored you are. I don't want to go to lunch with someone that I don't care about. What's it to me? So Garak does have these feelings. And for Bashir, the caregiver, to understand and know that lashing out is part of this, you know, getting recovery. Kudos to Bashir.
And realizing that it's not actually Garak talking in that moment. It is the addiction talking in that moment. It's his addicted self, those negative feelings, the stress even of his body going through this detox, that are saying these horrible things. And when you experience that as a carer, which I have, and I'll talk about that later, is you just have to say, I know this isn't you. I know that what you're saying about our relationship is not actually what we've had as our relationship. So,
Yeah.
And we're taught that a lot in school when we go to work with different populations, that, you know, you just don't, when they're in these stress moments, they're going to say things to try and hurt you because they want to push you away, because then that will validate them diving back into their addiction. So it's the cyclical thinking that is also very dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that they chose Garak as the character to go through this addiction storyline on Deep Space Nine, because it did a flip reverse. If you think about environment, we've talked about safety, security, love as what's missing maybe with an addict, and how interesting that someone is rejecting life in the Federation when everyone says, you know, it's happy, there's no money, there's no hunger, there's no poverty, everything's great. And here is somebody who is miserable in those surroundings, as he says, it's too cold, it's too bright, and I'm surrounded by hateful looks. How interesting that someone is so desperate to get away from the Star Trek universe that we know and love to something that's perceived, inverted commas, the enemy. And I've just found that fascinating that we learn this is why Garak hates being on DS9.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too to look at the fact that what we see as would be an idyllic situation where, you know, like you said, there's no homelessness, no hunger, no nothing like this, that Garak should be happy. But when he says surrounded by hateful looks, I think that still shows that regardless of how far the Federation may have come in some ways, prejudice is still alive and well. Maybe not so much, well, even kind of in some of the officers that we see in the way they talk about Garak and treat him. But, you know, your lay people who are there just, you know, I don't know. You could be in the safest place in the world, but if you feel that every person around you hates you, that's still a hard situation to be in.
Yeah, and you know, we say the Federation in loose terms. He's on a Bajoran station a year after the Bajoran occupation. You know, it's to put this in a real world example. My grandmother passed away last year at age 100. You know, she still wouldn't, if a German person moved into her street, she wouldn't have anything to do with them. She would be, you know, resenting them because of the war. All these years later, and you know, those wounds are there for certain generations who went through it. So this is, it's very current for the Bajorans to hate the Cardassians. We're not talking about something from ages ago. It's last year. It's these people are fresh out of subjugation and internment camps and all sorts. So you can understand those reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's because there is hurt and trauma on their end. And when we have, every person on this planet has some sort of trauma to varying degrees, our ability to deal with and come to terms with that trauma varies depending on our physiological makeup, our brain chemistry, and again, what we have around us. So when we look at the world and the turmoil that we're in and how people are coping, there's just so much hurt everywhere. And so people are dealing with that hurt how they can, whether that's drinking a giant cup of coffee, engaging in hard substances, or engaging in distrust and exiling other people because they think that that's how they're going to keep themselves safe. When really a lot of it is just unmet trauma, unmet needs, scarcity of resources, all that stuff is taking place right now.
So now we've established the situation.
Yeah.
We've seen it's pretty bleak for Garak. Let's explore the viewpoints. As I said earlier, addiction affects more than just the individual with these struggles. It's those around them too, friends, families, loved ones. And you do get this really fantastic look, you know, as how it's affecting Bashir as well as how it's affecting Garak. So sticking with the main man himself, Garak, you know, what is he seen to be doing here in this episode? We see that the implant has started to break down, and he's starting to experience the withdrawal. So what are some of the kind of physical things that we see Garak going through initially in this episode, Amy?
Well, what Bashir notices, his hand goes to his head, or Garak's hand goes to his head. So there's obviously headaches. We don't know if it's from the implant or if it's from not getting the substance. And then Bashir also points out that he's, sweating, is getting all clammy, and he faints. I mean, he just sort of collapses. So there's definite pain, but yet he still insists that there is nothing wrong. And I'm just like, what in your head, allows you to say, oh, I just dropped to my knees. Oh, there's nothing wrong. The evidence is right there. I mean, that was a little tough for me when he just kept insisting. And thankfully, Bashir's like, yeah, whatever. And Bashir was patient by not pushing it the first time, but the second time he got on it. But those physical, what else am I missing there with his?
So you got the almost the medical physical effects of withdrawal there. We see something that I've known amongst friends and family is quite common, that when you run out of one drug, you turn to another. So he's swapping the narcotic in his head for alcohol. And he's basically trying to top up the effect or the numbing of the pain through drinking quark dry, quite frankly, to limited effect. And I mean, just kudos to Deep Space Nine. It's just so common that people do that. And yeah, you mentioned it yourself, Kristin. You then get all of these lies, lashing out, deflection, misdirects, to kind of deflect this addictive situation and stop people either getting close or what. So in your kind of expert capacity, I would say, Kristin, was this a really good representation of an addict?
I think it was a really good representation of an addict who is in a place where they're needing to make some big decisions. So I had a very, very dear friend of mine, and we were friends for years. We worked together. We went to school together, everything. And then we kind of just lost touch because life gets busy. And then I find out that he had left our town and gone to the downtown east side in Vancouver, which is, for lack of a better term, sort of Skid Row. Yeah. And I found out that he was there and he was addicted to cocaine. And I had no idea. Him and I were best friends. We were inseparable. And suddenly he's selling himself on the street to try to buy drugs. He's homeless. Everything is so bad. So he starts hitting everybody up for money. And we all, of course, talked on our end. We're like, we need to just let him hit rock bottom, because that's what you kind of need to let the person do. And so we all were like, I'm sorry, I can't send you money. No, you can't come back and stay with me. No, you can't do this. You can't do that. And the absolute hate in his replies to our boundaries was really hard. Again, this is somebody I'd been friends with for over 10 years. And he was calling me names. He was saying I didn't love him. He was saying our friendship was a lie. How could I let him suffer the way he was suffering? And so I really was able to empathize with Bashir from this episode, in that you just have to keep a strong front and just keep, because they're not in their right mind again. They don't actually know what's best for them. And we kind of do, right? We're not in an addicted state. So, sometimes it's hard to say, well, I know what's best for this person, but it's true in this situation where we needed to get him to a point where he was ready and willing to accept treatment. And we had to let him fall really, really hard to get to that point. So I can kind of see how how Bashir did that by not pushing it at first. And yeah, it was a very honest and raw depiction, but also very, very accurate from at least the experiences I've had with this. So
when I think of addiction or addicts, I do have some very personal examples of people who I know, but in general, I would think of, as you mentioned earlier, Kristin, a homeless person who's clearly on drugs, or a drunk in a bar, or, middle of the working day and the blind drunk. Those kind of very clear signs that somebody is on something and it's an addiction, and it's a habit that has got out of control. But what this episode did, I find quite cleverly, is it introduced me at a young age to the subject of the functioning addict. So someone who is addicted to a substance, but just goes around their everyday normal life and nobody knows. This episode was Garak hitting rock bottom. We've seen Garak before in previous episodes, and we know him as this bright, camp, colourful, mysterious character. And you would not have known he was on this device, pumping full of endorphins, keeping him high, basically, permanently. So that concept of someone can get up, go to work, have a normal everyday life, and be an addict. And it's only when it gets out of control, like it does here, that you get your more traditional view of, oh, that person's a junkie, or other term that you might use. So I actually just found this as maybe not on my initial watch of DS9. I was only a young teenager, but certainly in rewatches in my later teens and early 20s, I thought, wow, this is educating me on a different side of humanity that I've never really had in my life.
That's very interesting that you bring up functioning addicts, because they are functioning. And so what is your role as a carer for them? Because I have functioning addicts and in my life, and people who know the situation are like, oh, you're being a codependent. And I'm like, but it's not. Where do you sit on that? Because the carer is in a completely different scenario than the rock bottom addict.
Yeah. And almost that kind of threat of cold turkey or breaking that cycle will have a worse effect than letting it continue if they are a functioning addict.
Yeah.
It's such a dilemma for, as we said, the people around. Yeah, it's weird. What are your thoughts on kind of the specifics of Garak's addiction, this device that gives him some kind of hormone or neurotransmitter to keep him happy? To me, it seemed a little bit like antidepressants almost, which is not an addiction, that it's medication for mental conditions. And so many people are on antidepressants. I have been myself in the past. But I found it confused, or got me thinking a little bit wider, because I would just think of addiction as alcohol or hard drugs. I know there's sex addiction, gambling addiction, all sorts. But when I would think of something like an antidepressant to help you get by in a world where you can't function properly or sufficiently, to me that's medical attention. That's good. But then you hear stories of people who struggle to get off them, and it becomes a problem. So I don't know. Did that land with any of you? Did you see it as kind of medicine?
Oh, we're getting real this morning, and it's early here.
It is.
I've been on antidepressants for 18 years.
Wow.
Ooh. And they have definitely saved my life.
Yeah.
So it's hard. Like, I've tried to go off and I don't cope. I just can't cope. It must be something in my brain is sort of broken. So it's, you know, people always look at me too. They're like, well, you don't seem depressed. Why do you need antidepressants? I'm like, because I'm on the proper medication. Thank you for making me feel really bad about that. But it's, you know, watching that, I kind of got it, where if somebody was just suddenly like, we're cutting you off cold turkey from your antidepressant, I would freak out. I would freak right out. But again, it's not an addiction. It's a way for me to be a functioning person in society. And so I'm forever thankful for them and grateful for Justin, who supported me getting on them. And I'm thankful to the Canadian health system that they are so stinking affordable. They're like $1.25 a month for me. So, you know, having that type of access has made it easy. And I think that's something we see is when it's the device itself for Garak that starts misfunctioning that causes this to happen. And I think we see that a lot with functioning addicts, is when their supply starts to get interrupted, is when we see that the chaos start. But and I could definitely see that if my doctor suddenly was like, I'm not refilling this for you, you need to figure it out otherwise, I don't think I could.
That, I mean, it's medical intervention, and I just wanted to kind of make that distinction between addiction comes in all forms, and it's not necessarily, I think the term addiction maybe has a negative connotation, but like dependency of, we need things to get through, whether that is medicinal or whether it's recreational, that goes bad. The subject is so wide reaching, and as I say, Kristin, I've got personal experience with antidepressant medication. It got me through a very tough couple of years, twice in my life. So no, absolutely no shade or judgment on them as medication.
And I just love it when people are like, have you tried yoga? Have you tried meditating?
Have you tried going for a run?
Okay, right. Have you tried just being happy? And I'm like, thanks for that deep insight. Random person I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, we want to point that out. Like, I always look at it as a number line. Of course I do. But like, your baseline is 0. And if your brain is producing not enough, you're negative, you are deficient. And you should not be living your life starting from a deficiency. And also, you should not be a positive, right? If your body is producing too much, that's a problem. So there's medications to get you to your 0, like your baseline. And there is no shame, and grateful that we can find that 0 ground, you know, for each individual, and that is becoming more aware. To your question, Kelvin, with Garak, I wasn't thinking like a antidepressant. I was thinking like a pain blocker. Probably because I have a friend who like, oh, I had to go to the dentist. Oh, did he give you any pain drugs? And I'm like, no, he doesn't, because I don't. Advil is good enough for me. Ibuprofen, like, but it's always, did I get the hydrocodone? Did I get this extra above and beyond pain reliever? And so that's what I was thinking. Like, it was, if it was put in by the Obsidian Order, like it was some kind of hydrocodone or, you know, something like that. That's where my brain went, because
an addiction to painkillers is such a real thing. It really
is. That's what I was thinking.
That's a really good point, Amy, because I think when we talk about functioning addicts, one of the number one things is that addiction to painkillers. I talk to some people who are like, oh, I've cut down on my T3 intake so much, I only take 2 a day. If I was taking 2 Tylenol 3 a day, I wouldn't be able to get out of bed. So again, to think that is somebody in that much physical pain that they need that type of, and then when that stops working, that introduces
they've built up the resistance.
And then they have to go to illicit drugs. And Yeah, because one of the big things that we have right now is we're supporting a man who is he's considered palliative with cancer. He's got quite a few different types, and he lives in a recovery home. And his doctor wants to prescribe him fentanyl patches to deal with the pain of having cancer. It's very, very painful. And our big thing is, how do we protect him from being attacked by other people in the building who are going to want those fentanyl patches? And so that's, you know, because that is what they will easily do to again, Amy, like you're talking about, have that painkiller just constantly being pumped into their bodies.
Yeah. So we've explored the addiction. I think hopefully the listeners, if they didn't have enough sympathy for Garak before, they certainly will now. Now we've really, really hammered it. What do we think of Bashir? You know, clearly he's almost portraying two roles here. He's the doctor of the situation, doctor-patient relationship, but this is his friend.
Yeah.
So, you know, how did you see that relationship with Bashir and Garak? Were you looking at it as duty of care, or is this your family member trying to sort you out, get you clean? Is it a mixture of both? How did it land with you? What do you think, Amy?
Yeah, I really do see it as a good mixture of both. And, you know, he's very compassionate and, you know, friendly towards Garak. But then when he needs to, he throws on that doctor hat, you know, very quickly. But, you know, when he's with Garak in his quarters, caring for him, like that to me was above and beyond a Dr. Bashir. And I mean, I hate saying that, but I feel like it was a friend that was more of a family member that's, you know, staying with him at his quarters. So I think both. What do you think, Kristin?
I think he straddled these two worlds so well, where exactly as you were saying, Amy, he was the friend when he needed a friend, and then he was a doctor when he needed a doctor. So I think as soon as Bashir saw that the actual physiological symptoms were too much, and he knew that without physical intervention, he could die. You know, people have heart attacks all the time coming off of substances or strokes or whatever, that he knew that, okay, enough is enough. We're moving on to the next level. And he put on those doctor scrubs and did a very good job. So, yes.
Yeah.
How about you, Kelvin? What do you think?
I mean, you might disagree with me here, but the very, very start of the episode, just when, you know, when Garak's, my head a bit distracted. I mean, Bashir went in. He went straight in. What's going on? What's wrong? Let me consult the database. Let me do all these background checks. And I got a little hint of meddling. I'm not going to lie. I don't feel he hit that rock bottom medical emergency straight away until, you know, coming out of the bar, the scene where he was drunk. And to me, Bashir, it was that family aspect of almost the parent or whoever of meddling, really getting involved, but clearly in a very good, healthy and helpful way here. I don't know. It seemed to me that Bashir was a couple of pages ahead of the situation of where it needed to be. There was no discovery aspect of, oh, what's this? This is interesting. What's going on? He was straight there. I need to find out what this is.
You know, I loved when he was like pushing Garak, and it's like, I need to know what it is so that I can help you. Like, I'm stuck here. You keep telling me no, no, no. And I love that dynamic, because so many times in life, something that you think is terrible, but when your life is on the line, Bashir's like, it doesn't matter what you think or how terrible it is. I need to know so that we can solve the situation. And for him to just say it, like the release, I'm sure that was his first step into recovery, was just admitting. And Bashir wasn't like, oh, well, that's the worst thing. You're terrible. No, like, okay, I know what it is. Now let's get a plan to attack the problem. But that initial where you don't want to say, and you know it's just terrible in your head, but when you're with someone who is safe, that release. Oh my gosh, I loved that moment.
Yeah.
And I think too with doctors, they say one of the most important things for doctors to know is patient history. And people are try to hide so much from their doctors. They don't tell them that they're on this. But the big one is, are you taking any erectile dysfunction medication? And men are like, no, never. And then they bleed to death on the operating table, right? So it's the same thing. I found it very much like Bashir was very gingerly trying to get a patient history and trying to figure out, and because Garak was such a shrouded and mysterious person, and he still didn't know a lot about Cardassian physiology in general, I found this very much as being like information gathering in a friendly way, because he knew that if he needed to become the medical carer for Garak, he needed to try and get a bit of a history. So I found that as a very clever way of doing that.
What about as the episode moves on then? So we then see the lengths that Garak, why do I keep saying Garak when I mean Bashir? The length that Bashir goes to help Garak. Now, there's that beautiful scene of the bedside vigil, which is shot so beautifully with the fading in and fading out to show the passage of time, that he's there for so many hours. But, you know, he puts himself in some dangerous situations here to get these answers, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's a little meddling.
Yeah, I mean, he goes to meet Tain. I mean, anyone going to Cardassia is dangerous in itself.
Did he literally take a shuttle by himself?
Yeah.
That just can't, no, you go in pairs. Like, I don't believe a Starfleet officer could just, I'm going to take a ship and go to Cardassia. One man? No.
With your buddy system.
Yeah.
That didn't fly with me.
Janeway doesn't allow single person away missions, as Tuvok points out to 7 of 9 when she questions it. But maybe Sisko's a bit freer. We didn't actually see a scene like you usually do, where they go to Sisko saying, I would like to request the use of a runabout. Maybe they thought it had been done. Maybe this episode was overrunning. I don't know. But yeah, he was just, boom, he's off. Straight in there. Probably thought, I'll take the Rio Grande. It's the safe one. Nothing's going to happen to me in that runabout.
Well, and another one that I sort of felt was dropped, like he asked O'Brien if he could get access to the Cardassian medical files. And he's like, it'll take 2 weeks. And I'm like, well, where's that follow-up? I mean, it was sort of asked and then dropped. I would have,
Yeah. So you see the literal lengths Bashir goes to here. Kristin, what's your opinion on the fan theories of the relationship that we didn't get on screen with Bashir and Garak, that in another world, in another time of telling these stories, they could have been lovers? Did you get any feelings of more than friendship, more than doctor-patient relationship between this? Did you feel that Bashir was acting beyond that, or are you happy that that's just in fanfic? What's your opinion?
Oh, that's a big question. I think that with the Bashir and Garak relationship, I do believe that the romantic feelings were unfortunately one-sided. I think we very clearly know that Bashir had feelings for Jadzia and any other woman that walked on DS9. I don't believe that Bashir had romantic feelings towards Garak. Garak towards Bashir, we know that is canon. I mean, AJ has told us himself that that's how he played him.
Yeah.
I do think what this shows is, in the future, our medical system is so good that doctors have the time and the resources to really dig into what their patient needs. As opposed to now, where it's like, I can give you a 5-minute phone call and hopefully I can help you, or you have to wait 2 months to get in to see your doctor or whatever you might be, or you can't even find a general practitioner and you have to spend 4 hours in a walk-in, right? This doesn't happen. So I think that this is just another way of Star Trek showing how advanced things are in the future, where doctors can actually be investigative one more time and not just prescription pushers.
Yeah.
Unless, like we said, though, going back, not all prescriptions are negative, but sometimes there are other ways to deal with problems rather than just here are some pills, which I do see a lot happen. So no, I don't think it was a relationship of a lover going in. I think it was just a doctor, but maybe, I mean, I think the friendship definitely influenced how much he did.
Yeah. What do you think, Amy?
So I hear what you're saying. And yes, he was creeper with the women, which is why I like imagining him with Garak. However, at this episode, I can't see it. I think after, was this the first time that Bashir went to Garak's quarters?
I think this is the first time we see Garak's quarters. Yeah.
Right. So there's that. So now he's familiar with, entering and being in Garak's space. I think this really is a good turning point where their relationship, and now it's like, I think Bashir's like, okay, we can be a little flirty. And so I do see that, but not in this episode. I think this would be the beginning of, okay, their friendship has now changed. It's more raw. It's more open. Bashir has seen Garak vulnerable. Garak has seen that he's willing to be there for him. So although not here, but anything future, I can see that in I think Bashir's interested.
Okay.
I would like to point out here as well that not all carers have the good fortune of being a doctor. A lot of people, you're just a member of the family who is having to see a loved one go through these awful situations. If I may also get quite personal, my brother is an alcoholic, has been for many, many years, well over 25 years. And he's hit rock bottom more times than I can count. And to see the effect on my parents and on me, to the point where I've almost got that kind of Aenar Bruntain wash my hands of him approach, because I've had to take steps to protect my own mental health from that situation. And when I do tell the story of my relationship with my brother, or lack of relationship, I should say, a lot of people will say, well, don't you think that's quite cold that you're not looking after him? And I just say, with regret, after 25 years, I can't. I've had these periods of where he's been in remission and clean, and willing him to do well, and that build for another disappointment of here we go again. That I have to protect myself and my life so that I'm not another casualty of that situation. And shout out to a lot of people who've also had to make that very difficult decision to not be dragged into that world and be in that cycle of, this is your life now as well as theirs. He does have help. He's not out there on the streets on his own. He's got my parents and other people around him, and he has good times and bad times. But yeah, it's really affected our relationships where we're completely apart. We don't speak anymore. So I just wanted to kind of throw that dimension in there.
I think for people who say things so simplistic and overly simplified, like, well, why doesn't he just go to treatment, or why doesn't he just stop drinking, or anything like that? I think that's coming from people who maybe have never experienced the situation that you're in, right? Because when you're telling me this, I get it, because again, I've been in a similar situation too. It wasn't a family member, but it was a very, like I said, a very good friend. And when people would say that type of stuff to me, I'm like, you've never been in this spot, have you? And so, I want to just say that I'm sorry for that people have said that to you, Kelvin, because that's not fair for people to say that to you, that you are abandoning your loved one, because you're not. Because really, that's part of the addiction journey, is needing to reap the consequences of their actions, whatever those may be, because the hope is that eventually that will lead them to seek the help and become clean. And it's possible. It's been done. We've seen it many times, but I do wish you and your family the best with that ongoing journey with your brother.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. We're getting deep today. This is going to be quite a tough listen for the listeners. Shall we maybe lighten it up? Shall we just consider a few assimilations and regenerations for the episode in itself? So, Amy, do you want to start us off? What have we got?
Yes, I in watching this, I loved the first and the last moments. So the first moments, I mean, of course, everything in between, but my assimilations, like, it starts out with Morn. I think this is a very long amount of time where it's just Morn. I was so close. I'm like, he's going to speak here. I just know it. He didn't. Darn it. And then at the very end, where Garak gets the famous meme is from this episode, which I didn't know. And so I messaged the group. I'm like, it was worth it just for the meme. Where,
and remind us what the meme is.
You've given me answers all right, but they were all different. What I want to know is, out of all the stories you told me, which ones were true and which ones weren't? And Garak says, my dear doctor, they're all true. And then Julian says, even the lies? And then especially
the lies.
Wonderful. And what have you got for an assimilation, Kristin?
Oh, this whole friggin' episode is an assimilation for me. I don't have much negative to say about this. Again, call me biased, but I just love Garak.
Garak's fan club on Reddit.
It's my Reddit. My car's name is Garak. I met AJ. I have a photo with AJ. He signed my Garak doll. I mean, he's my, I love him. I love him. And I would have been friends with Garak. I would have. So I just felt that I wish there had been more of him on DS9. I wish we had seen more of AJ Robinson on this and in subsequent Star Treks. Because he's just such a talented actor, and the way that he was able to have a fully formed character by season 2, when many of the main characters and the main cast that we see are still building personalities, we know exactly who this character is.
Yeah. And really important to point out, so this episode is right at the end of season 2, but this is only Garak's 4th episode. He was in 1 episode in season 1 and 2 others before this in season 2. Oh. For Garak to come and be textbook Garak off the bat like this is just a testament to the writing and to Andy himself, what he did.
Yeah.
Okay, I did throw a couple of regenerations in there. I don't know if you guys have got any. It almost seemed like some of the main characters had a scene just because they were contractually obliged to be in the episode. Why did Sisko need to go to see Bashir as a result of shouting at Bajoran diplomats? Did he have a headache? Did he have a sore throat? Surely he could have just replicated something from the first aid kit. Why would you go and see your GP for a sore throat? It just seemed an excuse to get him in a scene and get him in the infirmary there. So that took me out of the episode a little bit. Maybe here in the UK, the NHS resource is such a hot topic. It's like you would not waste the time of the doctor by going with a sore throat.
Of course, I'm just going to come in. I had chronic strep throat as a child, where literally I would get strep, go on antibiotics for 10 days, have about 3 weeks of okay, and then I would have strep again. So eventually it culminated in me getting my tonsils out. But I was going to the doctor for a sore throat every 6 weeks as a child and being diagnosed via swab and all that with strep. So did he did Cisco have strep throat in this episode? Did he catch something during his delivery?
And shame on me for trivializing his situation. I've been Cisco shamed.
Not, but we can make that beta canon. This was the episode.
Amy, have
Cisco
you got
strep.
any regenerations for you, Amy?
Yeah, just the one that I wished we could have had that follow up with Brian O'Brien saying, all right, I got your medical files. I mean, that could have just easily been inserted, and then he could have, like, that's what could have led him to go to Cardassia. It's like, oh, here's this, what's his name? Elon, what's his name?
Enabrin?
Tane. Yeah, Enabrin. Yeah.
You know what I'm like for continuity, but also retcon. There's so many of the early Bashir episodes that I find when you know about his genetic enhancements later on, that when you go back to before that was a plot point, you think, oh, so this kind of theory of the Obsidian Order knows what you've had for breakfast before you even had it. They would have known that Julian was genetically resequenced. So the fact that was absent, clearly because the writers hadn't dreamed of it yet, to me was kind of a bit of a miss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
oh, sorry.
I'll do this one because, like I said, for me this isn't a regeneration of the episode, but just a regeneration of this character. Where Tane says that he wants Garak to have a, quote, slow and painful death. Yo.
Really, Dad?
Really, Dad? And I think this harkens back to when parents choose state, politics, religion, any of that over their children. And we saw it a lot when how many youth were cast from their home for coming out as gay to their parents. And how that was not a safe place for them. And their parents chose something like saving face or their religion or whatever over their own flesh and blood. And they're like, I don't care what happens to them on the street. Really? Really? So, you know, I've even asked some of my friends who are still in the church who are now parents. I've actually asked them, like, what would you do? What would you do? And they say, oh, I will continue to love them. And I'm like, okay.
Despite
that fact, and love them. What is it? Love the sinner, hate the sin. I'm like, it's not a sin. But I have an empty bedroom at my house, and I'm ready any day for one of these kids to be like, my parents have kicked me out. Well, come to mother. I've got you. Right, where I will not allow that to happen. But I've kind of pulled a Bashir in this case. So, you know, I'm just doing a little bit of background. What you know, what's going on here? What will just a little bit of digging, and they say they'll keep loving them. We'll see.
Did anyone else at the beginning consider that the implant that was given, I'm assuming inserted by the Obsidian Order, is like a control feature? And that so I was thinking as I was watching it, like, well, he, you know, showed compassion for those innocents on that last away mission, on that last mission he had. And so I thought it was the Obsidian Order inflicting pain on him, that was the torture device. Yeah.
I think
that was just a twist of the story.
That was the twist, because we've seen a lot of the implanted torture devices in, where have we seen them? We saw them in Gambit. Didn't we? And like the Agonizers on Enterprise attached. In a way, Stephen of Nine's cortical node, where if a drone feels feelings of individuality,
the most toys.
Yeah. So we're used
this
to
could be a whole series.
Does that mean we get to review The Wire at another point?
Okay. Wow, we're going off on one here. Let's bring it back to trivia. Amy, do you want to start us off with some trivia?
Absolutely. I love this. Robert Hewitt Wolf's original idea for this episode was to have shown that Kira had been addicted to battle stimulants ever since her days in the Bajoran resistance. However, that idea was rejected because it would be difficult to do subsequent episodes with Kira without referencing the addiction, and it was felt that this could tarnish her character too much. I completely agree. It's perfect for a secondary character. Well done. Good job, writers.
Yeah, but also quite interesting with the whole PTSD angle and Kira's background and resistance. And I
Yeah.
think in if this was Star Trek Discovery with Kira, I think they could definitely have done that, and
Yep.
it would have been great. But
Yeah.
we're not. We're in the 90s. It's 93.
Yeah.
So during the writing of this episode, the Obsidian Order was initially going to be the Gray Order until the producers learned that Babylon 5 planned to introduce a group called the Gray Council and felt the names were too similar. Well, that's perfect considering
I
what
love that.
considering what the name they picked and
Yeah.
the Obsidian Stone. And I think someone must have done some research. Like, what's a cool name that, you know, sounds neat but also could have this other meaning? And it's true, they're I think the Gray Order was it doesn't have the same impact because it's gray. That's neither here nor there. It's sort of a right, like they're very forthcoming in their point.
Well, when you look at it like gray, I mean, you can see why, because it's the gray area, but like Obsidian is black. It's a choice. It's, you know,
it's
the other end. Yes. And it's literate, like, or what's that? The OO.
Alliteration.
Yes. Alliteration. Yes.
Okay, I like this next one because it kind of would have given Sisko more to do in the episode. So, a line in the script, but not contained in the finished episode, would have revealed that Benjamin Sisko served as the Federation embassy on Romulus early in his career, where he befriended a Romulan member of the kitchen staff named Stolpan. And it was further revealed that Stolpan was arrested by the Tal Shiar for political improprieties. And in response, Sisko was prepared to go to the Tal Shiar headquarters and convince them to set him free. However, Sisko was eventually persuaded by Curzon Dax not to go. So here in my headcanon is the scene of Bashir going to ask for the runabout because I'm going to go and see Tain. And Sisko tells him this story of, I was in a similar situation once and was talked out of it. So I like that. I love that.
Huh. Yeah. Darn deleted scenes and cut scripts. Well, David Livingston commented, quote, "It's a bottle show. It's basically Andy Robinson in a room, but it's very compelling because it's one man intervening." I like that.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Also, I know we're all going to enjoy this. This was the first Deep Space Nine episode to be directed by a woman, Kim Friedman. And the producers were so impressed with her work that they brought her back to direct several crucial episodes. We should do a Kim Friedman series and review all the episodes that she has directed.
Right. We will get that on our Architect series for the next season of All Good Things. You heard it here first.
Yes.
Okay, so final thoughts. Now, we haven't done a huge amount in this series so far. We've done Enterprise's Damage and TNG The Game. So, Amy, who did it best?
Wow. Gosh, I will state the obvious in that the game is not the best. It's too 80s, too this is your brain on drugs. It's too clean, it's too on the nose, where The Wire and Damage, they get dirty, they get gritty, they get real. So yeah, TNG is just that rose-colored glasses. Oh, don't do drugs. But man, Damage and The Wire, that's tough. They both, like I said, just really get into it. I'm gonna still go with Enterprise Damage. I like that we get to see more, a larger, like, because with The Wire, it's just Garak. Like with Damage, it's infecting a larger group of people within a population. And so just for that one fact, but they're both so good. I'm going to go Damage.
Amy's going Damage. Kristin, what about yourself?
The Wire.
Oh, no hesitation.
No hesitation. This is just still one of my absolute favorite episodes. I will say I am not as familiar with Enterprise. So maybe I need to go have another quick little review of Damage just to bring it back to my brain. But DS9 is my favorite iteration of Star Trek. Andy Robinson is one of my favorite actors. Addiction is something that I deal with personally and professionally every day, and I just felt seen in this episode. So I'm gonna go with The Wire. And Kelvin, how about you?
I will put out there that The Game is one of my favorite TNG episodes, but in terms of fitting the brief for the Addiction series, you're right, Amy. I don't think it's too happy clappy, fluffy. Probably the same if it was a Voyager episode. And I'm in the same dilemma in that I loved Jolene's performance in Damage as, just requiring that Trellium D and the length she would go to get your fix, and the jitteriness and it was masterclass in acting. And Jolene doesn't get a lot of props for that, and she should get more. But I'm going to go for The Wire as well. It's all, this story is front and center. There's no, as far as I can remember, there's no B plot in this episode, is there? It's all about the matter at hand. And it fills the screen, it fills the story. You get the addict, you get the carer, and there's so much importance to canon and continuity that this is a fantastic episode of early Deep Space Nine, which gets a lot of hate in itself.
The one thing I will give The Game is that they called our addiction to devices many years before it would happen. So that is the one thing I'll give them. But Amy, I love this is your brain on drugs. The dare, all of that. Yes, let's go 90s drug prevention. But the one thing is their foretelling in The Game, when you look back, you're like, wow, they really called it.
What shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Mark, Christos, Kelvin, and Kristin. Whether you've got Xbox or Nintendo, check out Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey, a self-proclaimed gamer who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. 2 episodes enter the arena, 1 comes out victorious. Join hosts Joe and Kevin and a guest as they debate which should win the Batleth battle. Grab your popcorn as you listen to Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed but should definitely check out. Hosted by Mark and Matt. Don your apron for The Food Replicator, where Matthew eats and drinks his way through the Star Trek cocktail and 3 cookbooks. Beam Aboard Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG, hosted by Steven. In order to not repeat it, listen to History with the Szilagys, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissy and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissy and Thad. Curl up with a good book and delve into Beta Canon with Peter, host of the online Trek Book Club on Twitter, and his new companion, Trek Book Club podcast. Test your Trek knowledge with Trexperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey. Whether you're a member of Starfleet Federation or Planetary Union, go check out Union Federation, covering current Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley. Head over to YouTube and watch The View Screen live on Sundays. your Trek-inspired talk show hosted by Kelvin and Amy, with Season 2 starting in September for a 10-week run. Spill the tea with Christos while he discusses current Trek news and events and explores the world of fandom via guest interviews, all with a LGBTQIA+ perspective on What's the Tea, Bev. And for our Patreon members, we have the Hive Mind with monthly script readings, Let's Fly, a Discovery reaction show, It's Green, a cornucopia of topics, Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek. We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Right, Kristin, where are we going next week?
So
for our
next
penultimate episode of the season.
Oh, I'm sad that I am going to be absent for this because it is it's continuing part 6 of the genetic engineering, and we will be reviewing, or you will be reviewing, Prodigy's Masquerade. I will be having a lovely anniversary weekend in Seattle. So
Nice.
Lovely. I'm very excited for Masquerade. This is the one where Dahl, meets that crazy lady, and I can fix this. I can fix this. Let's just give you a little bit of this DNA and this DNA.
It's a good one.
No.
We would love to hear what you thought of today's episode, and we hope you'll join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, or on our Discord server to continue the discussion there. Please make sure you follow the network on Bluesky and Instagram at BQN Podcasts. We've also partnered with our friends at the Fandom Podcast Network, where you can find us by searching the master feed. Links can be found in the show notes. So, Amy, where can people find you when you're not downing copious amounts of drinks at Quark's bar and having to be dragged out by security? I said Quark's like could easily be Masquerade bar in
yes, let's put that into context. Well, when I am not doing that joyfully with all my friends, you can find me here on the network where I'm co-hosting Union Federation. We are having a great time over there. We are covering all the 2-parters of TNG. It has been so much fun. We have done Best of Both Worlds and the Klingon one. Come on. Redemption, yes. We're covering Unification, so we're moving along. There's 8 2-parters. So much fun. Please listen to us over there. I am on our Discord server and our Facebook group, the BQN Collective. And that's where I'm at. So, Kristin, where can people find you when you are when you're not opening up your home to all the lovely people who need your help and support and connection?
And connection. I am a connection person. Mm-hmm. I am on Instagram, connecting with people there at KStrats. I am also very active on Reddit with, of course, user Garak's fan club. Very interesting discussion this morning, which was what universally loved episode of Star Trek do you think is overrated? And the number of times the inner light was brought up. I was clutching my pearls.
Oh,
anyway,
my goodness.
So there's some good stuff happening on Reddit with some fun discussion. And of course, I am in the BQN network on Facebook. So, Kelvin, where can people find you when you're not clogging up the NHS with your sore throat?
Oh, apologies. I pay my taxes. You can find me in the BQN Collective Facebook group, or you can come for me directly on the socials at Kelvin's Timeline. And in 3 weeks' time, you can find, well, all of us on the view screen when we return live on the 8th of September. So set those calendars. It just so happens, out of coincidence, it may be Star Trek Day. And what better way to celebrate than listening to and watching the 3 of us live on the view screen?
Yes.
That means I have to get up earlier to put my makeup on.
If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron on the network on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can join our reaction shows, Hive Mind, script readings, and enjoy our special patron-only shows of It's Green and Amy's Math Moments. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details and watch your messages.
If becoming a patron isn't your thing, you can still support the shows by sharing our posts on social media, talking about it with your friends, or hitting the like and subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leaving us a star rating and written review, because that will help others to find the show.
At this time, we would like to thank our very own associate producers, Mahendran Radhakrishnan and Davey Seastrum. A special thanks to Gray and Kelly for our opening and closing music, and Mark White for our artwork and everything.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you'll join us as we search out
All good